Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestle Horror.
Okay, welcome back to the Wrestle Horror Podcast. Viewers and listeners, Meat Hook Jim here, along with Donnie Hoover.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
And Mr. John Orlando.
Hey, everybody, how you doing?
And on this show, we've got a special guest. He's kind of like the unsung hero of the wrestling ring, and people kind of forget about him sometimes until it's time to count three. I am talking, of course, about Peachy Rodriguez, one of the new Ohio wrestling referees. Peachy, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good.
So we brought Peachy on here to kind of, if you're an aspiring referee, this is the man to talk to, give you some tips and tricks, and understand exactly what a referee does. And it's a lot more than you think, as I found out once I got into this business. Referees just don't bounce around the ring and count three. There's a lot more to it, isn't there, Peachy?
There's a lot more to it than just that.
Can I jump in real quick? Because I want to say one thing, Jim. I think that one of the things you just stated was that fans may not notice, all right, the referee in the ring until it's time to count the three. Well, that means you're a good referee. I think you agree with me on that. If you don't notice the ref, he's doing a damn good job, or she's doing a damn good job. Because it's when you notice that things go sideways.
Right.
Yep.
I'll agree with that. But, and I'm not gonna play devil's advocate or anything. I lost my train of thought. It derailed. It's Peachy's fault.
It's all my fault.
It's all your fault. The referees are more valuable than the fans realize, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Very true.
Even if you don't see them until the end. Or when they mess up a count. Like
That's
that
very
one,
true.
Or when the heel has his foot on the rope and the referee misses it. Remember that guy?
What are you talking about?
You remember that guy at the new Ohio wrestling show at the fair? Oh man,
he was mad.
He was indignant.
Yeah.
He was going to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he does wear glasses. I mean, come on.
But
I should have taken those off, right?
But Peachy, go ahead. I didn't mean to jump in there. Let's do a little referee 101.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
My first question I'd like to ask him is, say I want to become a referee, and say you got there's people out there listening. They're thinking about, well, I don't want to be a wrestler, or I don't have the capabilities of being a wrestler, but maybe I'd like to try refereeing. What would be your advice for somebody wanting to become a referee in wrestling business?
Find a quality training center. Don't just go to a show and think that you can throw on stripes and have a pair of black pants and you can get in there and do what we all do. I went through a whole summer of training in a hot garage, pretty much. We shared a space with a tire place that there was a bunch of tires in there as well and a ring, and that's what we did. And it was every day, and I think we went 3-4 hours every night, and it was hot out, and there was we had like one fan maybe that worked. But definitely go to I'm in Ohio. James Avery is, he's got his school in Columbus. I know that Truth Martini is running his up in Michigan. Cody Hawk's running his down in Cincinnati. There's plenty of places to go.
Jimmy Lee up in Mansfield.
Jimmy Lee, yes. Yep.
And of course, there's several schools up in Cincinnati as well, too. So
there's very true. There's too many to remember all. I mean, but there's good ones out there. If you do your research on it, where people came from. The proof's in the pudding. That's all I look at. I mean, I know where I trained at. If I say it, there are people outside of Ohio probably won't know, but to the people in Ohio, they know what the legacy is there and what the trend is. So, I mean, I know that I got quality training from quality trainers that were, trained by Al Snow and Crusher Klein. So I know that I got quality training, and it's not even that. There's so much more after the initial training that you can't even possibly learn because it's all hands-on and on the job training.
Yeah, well, if I'm not misinformed or mistaken, I'll go ahead and say it that you were trained up north there at Big Tom and them in War Wrestling, and we've had Big
That's
Tom
very
on here a
correct.
few times. Yeah, we've had him on here a few times. He's a bank of knowledge and the promoting aspect of it, and that's where you got your
Definitely.
start. You know.
Yep. Big Tom and Dusty Dillinger.
Mhm.
I mean, I went to it. I had actually, and the thing was I was helping set up and tear down and do everything before the shows a year and a half before I was even allowed to step foot into the ring. I mean, the most I was allowed to step in the ring before that was to sweep it out.
Yeah, he said they put you through the ringer and that you were a quality person to have in camp. So he said they brought you up right and
Definitely.
put you through the
I
ringer,
appreciate that.
and that's what everybody needs. You know, if you're going to be trained, you need to be put through the ringer and taught right.
Peachy, do you personally believe that you have to train to be a worker to be an effective referee?
Yes.
Okay.
It's and that's enough. Just like everybody else, there was no referee only class. There was no manager only class. You have to go through it all to, and it helps with so many things such as your timing, your positioning, your cadence, everything. And the, I like it more because it helped me. If I know what a move is, what move is happening, like I know just by the setup of it, where I need to be at. Because if they're setting up for a suplex and I'm standing right behind them, I'm probably going to get kicked in the head if I don't know what I'm doing. So it's a lot of it is just, you learn the moves, but the thing is you can teach the moves to a monkey. And that's what I was always taught. There's so much more to it than just knowing the moves. And it doesn't matter if you're just a manager or if you're just a referee or if you're actually a worker. It's all you have to know it all.
So, going along with that, Peachy, I mean, obviously, it makes perfect sense to know how to be a worker in order to do this. Referees sometimes get in the wrong place at the wrong time, whether by accident or by design, and they need to know how to take a bump.
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, I've taken belly to belly suplexes through a table, and I've taken, I've been kicked in the head because of, me being in the spot where somebody gets picked up for a body slam and I get hit with the feet. I mean, it's one aspect or one end of the spectrum to the other. I mean, I've taken all those bumps, and another thing back to the training is, not only did I do it just for the initial 10 weeks that I went through it, I went through it with every class that came after me as well, whether in that class or there was 5 people in that class. I came in and I helped out Dusty with everything that, if he needed somebody in there to be the body or, the crash dummy pretty much, I got to take all those moves so that he could demonstrate to everybody else, hey, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. And it wasn't just, oh, Peachy's coming in here and he can count to 3. So, it was a lot more than just that.
Hey, sticking to the point about taking bumps, what was the worst bump you ever took in terms of being a referee?
Probably the one when Dexter Dementia tried to put me through a table. And
Okay.
actually, I mean, I take that back. Stamp Lickage tried to put me through the table. And the table only cracked. It didn't break. So we went myself and the table only went down a little bit. And then Dexter decided, well, you know what? We're going to make sure he goes through the table. And he came off with, so I got choke slammed. And then Dexter came off with I'm thinking a forearm or something because I just relaxed and I knew something was going to happen. So then he hit me with like a forearm in the chest and the table broke a little bit more, but not all the way. And then I think he came off with like a splash off the top rope or something. I don't remember what it was. And the table finally broke. But yeah, that was probably the worst one.
You're probably like, thank God.
Yeah.
Have
That was my non-reffing days. That was right after I got out of training. That was, we were doing a little gimmick with the Jihad, which was Allah and Matt Stryker, the real one from Cincinnati, not that other guy. But we were doing a gimmick with them, and we were the Jihad security. And we just pretty much ran interference. There was 3 of us. We just ran interference the whole time for the Jihad. So yeah, that was the fun of that. But John, probably the worst one I've taken as a ref. They're not bad if you know how to take them. That's the thing.
Okay. All right. You've never rejected one where somebody goes, "Hey, here we're gonna work to this spot. By the way, ref bump," and you go, "Yeah, I don't know. No thanks. I'm not interested."
No, because most of the guys, they know what.
Okay.
They don't want to do anything too crazy, because then it takes away from either their heat or their shine or whatever it is. But you don't want the ref to be the superstar. That's not what we're there for. Again, we're there to fade into the background, do our job, and not be heard and not seen. I will tell you, and only because of I had never worked with him before, and this is as silly as this sounds, but I took a stunner from Necro Butcher, and it was more because I didn't want to mess it up, because I didn't want to catch a punch in the mouth from him, because he hits for real. From everything I've ever seen, he hits for real. Donnie, do you know about that?
No, I don't know the whole story. I just know I know Necro Butcher.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, but I mean, and it was like I didn't want to mess up that bump, and all it was just a stunner. It's a simple bump to take, but it was just like, I don't want to mess this up, because he could kick me for real. He could, he might punch me and break my jaw. I don't know. And that was probably the scariest
one. So obviously you're supposed to fade into the woodwork during the match, but you and a lot of times referees are helping steer the match, keeping time, especially in the indies. How challenging is that with everything else that's going on to kind of steer the guys where you need to be?
Most of the guys know what's going on. They don't so much need to be steered. It's if they get lost, and the easiest thing that if they get lost is to tell them to take a rest hold, because then they can gather themselves up. Okay. They can figure out where they're going to go from where they were at. I've been in there with guys that were lost within, I hate to say it, 30 seconds of the bell ring, and they start circling, and I had one guy look at me and go, "I'm lost. I forgot what the spot was." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we just started. How did you forget already?" But it's after you do it for a while, you learn. If your brain works that way, and mine fortunately does. I know during some training classes we'd have matches, and this is in there with 3 guys and myself, and after the match, like I was on the quote unquote heel team, and the other 2 guys were on the babyface team, were completely blown up, didn't know what they were doing. And Big Tom asked them, "Hey, how long have we been doing this match? Like, how long do you think the match went?" One guy said 18 minutes. The other one said like 7 minutes. And he asked the other guy, his partner, and he said, "I don't know, probably I'm thinking right around 10. I said, "I think about 11. He said 11:05. It's one of those things that, like, after you do it for so long, you start to know how long you've been in that ring. It's also nice to have. I know John Orlando at OC. If somebody didn't have a watch, John, regardless of if you had a watch or not, John always stood up when you had, when it was time to go. All I had to do was just look over to John, and he knew what the time was. And now, like with New Ohio, we're trying to implement head or earpieces. It just makes things easier because you don't have to worry about You know, I know that I have one. It's on a sweatband, and I actually got that from Jason Ayers years ago. And it was just, he showed up at a war show to work, and he said, "Here, use this." Basically, his reasoning was he did Ring of Honor one time. The camera was like right on him, and he had this like watch on or something, and he said it all glare and it annoyed him, and he never used a watch after that, as far as like a wristwatch. So he I think he learned it like in AAW in Chicago, just putting like just a simple like dollar store, sticking it on the wristband or on the armband, the sweatband, and that's your clock right there. It's for the most part disguised. Most people don't know that it's a watch unless they like see your arm, but at that point it doesn't matter. But then, you know, everybody's moving to earpieces now. It makes it a lot easier. You don't have to worry about having that watch, and you have somebody that constantly has time. And if something happens, you have a way to, you know, you have somebody watching it from the outside that can direct you if you need that direction. If a couple years in the business and doesn't know how to direct you guys, or is probably having a problem, you know, it's like somebody in the back can have that headpiece on and tell us, "Hey, do this," and
Okay. Moving on. I was curious. I mean, now obviously being in there with two workers can be a challenge, but what's it like when you've got a triple threat match or a tag team match? Is it?
We'll start with the triple threat first.
Okay.
You know, we talked about this for the fair show. You know, we had essentially three pretty green guys in there that would need direction. A three-way can become a cluster real quick. You know, with those guys, we just kind of gave them a little bit of direction about how, you know, what we wanted in, you know, at the outcome of it, and just kind of gave them a little bit of advice on how to guide through that match. And they did a really good job of doing it. As long as you know, nobody goes into it and they get hurt or anything like that, and they just kind of know and the timing works out right on it. Usually a triple threat, doesn't become a mess that quick. You know, tag team matches, it's like working a regular match. You just have two more people in there usually. So it's not, I mean, there's nothing really more difficult about it. It's just from a referee standpoint, you have to make sure that, you know, they make the tag, that they, you know, are staying on the outside, you know, usually somebody's trying to come in to help out their partner, something like that, and just keeping them out of the ring. That's usually what it is.
And of course you ignore the blind tag from behind you.
If I don't see it, it doesn't happen.
You hear it. You hear it.
He
Hey,
can't hear it. He's got that earpiece in, remember?
yeah.
Exactly. All I hear is Donnie yelling out random things that we don't understand.
Well, be thankful Chris isn't on the other end of that earpiece.
Oh, yeah, because we don't need her to get distracted any more than what she does.
Peachy, probably one of the biggest things I think that most refs have to kind of deal with is when wrestlers cheat right in front of you. I mean, I know I've talked to many officials who will go from 0 to 60 in terms of anger when that happens, because it just makes everybody look silly. So do you agree that that's probably the worst thing to happen to you when you're in the ring, is for when the heels blatantly cheat right in front of you?
That's probably one of the top two things. Because it one, like you said, it makes all of us look stupid, but then it pulls that curtain away. Like the whole like suspension of disbelief and you know, all this stuff, like it all just goes out the window real quick when you do that. Like it's beyond entertainment at that point, because the fans are already looking for something wrong with within a match, within any sort of that or any aspect of that show, they want to try to find, for whatever reason, they want to figure out what you're doing wrong. And then when I see something like that, you know, and it's right in front of me, it's like, you know, what do you do at that point? You know, it's most obviously you can disqualify them if it doesn't really have, I guess if there's an angle to it or anything like that, you can just disqualify them. And then, you know, speak to the promoter in the back about it. You know, this is why I did it. If he's mad, usually 9 times out of 10, a promoter will understand that, hey, you know, it was something that you had to do.
What's the second thing? You said that there was 2 things. What's the other thing that annoys you the most besides that?
And when you clearly tell, when you're obviously we have time restraints that we have to work within. And when those guys don't care about you telling them that it's time to go home, that's the big, that's the one. And I've had matches where veterans, I've sat there and I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And they just continue. And I had a match. It was supposed to be, I think I was given we were given 8 to 10 minutes. And I think it went 18 minutes.
Have you ever just promptly ended a match because they were going too long and just said the hell with it and just called it?
No, I've never been really. That was like the one that was really bad. Most of the time, it's like, you know, a minute over, 2 minutes, and I know that they hear it, but it's like they still just, they have like whether the finish takes a little bit longer than what they anticipated, but usually I don't have to like abruptly end anything because usually it's within 30 seconds of being over our time that they finally take it home. So.
Well, I'm going to ask real quick, Peachy, have you ever had to do the count? And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, you know, you have a near pinfall and somebody doesn't kick out and you make that 3 count. Has that ever happened to you?
We'll go back to the exposing of the business.
Okay.
So we talked about the Ohio State Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And this year was kind of like a redemption for me because last time that I was at the Ohio State Fair, I had taken a bump, it was a super kick, and it was from what my angle was, it didn't look like a super kick. So I didn't think it was the finish, and I did the dramatic 1, 2, kick out, and he did not kick out.
Oh.
And it was in front of a lot of NWA guys, a lot of Ring of Honor guys, Impact guys, the whole spectrum. And I felt about this big, and it really did a number on my brain. I was really hard on myself for a long time. I actually walked away for a little bit because of it. And so, I mean, yeah, I've never had to do the part where like I count and somebody doesn't, like, that's on them if they don't kick out. But like that one, like that was the opposite of it. And I messed that one up big time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yep.
I can remember actually an OCW show where it was that way. It was actually Todd Richards versus Mr. Insanity. And yeah, Insanity forgot to kick out, and the ref 1, 2, 3, and I was like, uh-oh. But he was cool about it. He's like, no, that's on me. I totally blanked. I didn't kick. He told the ref, you did the right thing. I mean, it would look like shit if you went the 1, 2. He goes, it's my job. So, you know.
Yep. And I've since then I've learned tricks to help with that close 3 or that close. It's like the 2 and 7/8, whatever you want to call it. I've learned tricks so that if my hand does come close to hitting the mat, it doesn't make the sound. So then the fans don't think that you hit the mat. So it's, you know, and it's one of those things. It's just a matter of cupping your hand versus slapping the mat, and they don't, you know. So it's a real quick thing that you can change if you need to, and if they're, you know, if you see that they're not going to kick out, you can still count it.
Speaking of slapping the mat, obviously you've got the canvas and you've got the padding, but it's got to take a toll on your hand because you're hitting it pretty hard from what I can say.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Arnold and the Fair, they do a number on your body, that's for sure. It's people think it's a trampoline. They think it's just a glorified trampoline, and I offer it up anytime I can to somebody that says that I hate the F word. I think any of us involved with it hate the F word because it's far from fake. But I invite anybody that thinks that it's a trampoline or it's soft or anything, I will give them Dirk's ring anytime and let them take a bump, and they'll find out real quick that it's not fun. It's like falling on concrete most of the times.
Yep. Yeah, I remember back at the Arnold, we did that long Saturday, and then even you and Papa Smurf both came to me on Sunday, and both of you guys were like, "Man, my freaking wrist is killing me," and I'm like, "Man, tape it up. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you."
I will tell you that I part of it's all referees from. I mean, I think we've the administrator figured it up today, and we have referees in 5 of the 7 continents. Obviously, I don't think we're ever going to get anybody from Antarctica, but but it's long been debated on there about if I guess how you count, and it's more or less like your positioning on, like, if you're on your hip or if you're on all fours. And I will tell you that the Arnold actually made me change from being on my side to being on all fours, because then I didn't have to go down on my hip as much. And it was because I was in pain after that first day at the Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll throw out the obscure wrestling reference. You should just be Bronco Lubitsch and just go down to one knee and like stand next to the rope. You can just count.
I've actually heard of them counting, like standing in the corner and stomping the mat. That's 1, 2, 3. That's how they.
What?
And I'm like, what? Yeah. Yep. I heard it was a British thing. I don't know how true that is, but that's what they were talking about at one time. I'm like, that's the silliest thing ever. But hey, whatever works.
That's funny.
Peachy, who are some of the refs that you kind of model yourself after? Because I mean, we're all wrestling fans. We all watch it. We all enjoy it. So obviously, I think that probably there's got to be some connection, Peachy, between you and some of the referees in the WWE or Ring of Honor or whatever.
It's not really one. It's of watching, and you have to adjust yourself. I mean, when I first started back in 2006, I asked Bruce Gray, who was a referee back at that time. Not a lot of people realize that now, but Bruce was a referee. That's how he started out. And I said, Bruce, who do I watch? And he told me just to go watch Tommy Young stuff. He said, that's what I did. That's what I modeled myself after. I mean, I watched some Tommy Young stuff at that time. YouTube wasn't what it was or what it is now. And I was never a big tape trader like a lot of the guys. WWE and WCW is what I watched growing up. That's it. So, I mean, I always like the smaller guys, and I'm like the Pee Wee Andersons, and that's like the ones with the weird names. That's why I adapted to the Peachy Rodriguez as much as I didn't like it when I first started out. It grew, and there's a lot of people that don't even know what my real name is because that's all they've known me as is Peachy, and there's somebody in here that actually, kind of helped move that gimmick along as far as where I'm from, I guess. And you can tell by him laughing.
I'll take the credit for that.
Go for it. Tell him the story about how San Juan, Puerto Rico came into that there, John.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. I forget the backstory behind it. I know it was mentioned, and I can't remember. You're gonna have to fill in the blanks. I got to be honest. It's the one thing I forget. I don't even know how it got started.
There was an OCW show, and for the commentary, you had said that I knew a really great travel agent, and the travel agent got me really good flights from San Juan, Puerto Rico, my hometown. And it's funny because this goes back to fans. I love fans. I love fans that believe, because the OCW faithful, as we called them, there was a group of like 6 to 8 guys showed up at every OCW show when Jeff was running Newark and Rittman and, you know, Coshocton and all over the place. And these guys would drive all over the place. And now that I live down here, like, I know where everything's at a little bit better than when I did when I was in Lima. I was just driving 3-4 hours to a show like, oh, okay, we're going to another OCW show. But now I understand how much they drove to come to these shows. And, you know, I missed a few shows for whatever reason. I think I might have had my kids or something. And I come back, and I think we were in Zanesville. And they're like, hey, where you been at? We missed you. And I said, oh, man, I've been home in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I haven't been able to get back. And they go, oh, that's cool, man. Hey, we're glad you're back, though. Like, it didn't even skip a beat, man. They were just right with it. I'm like, whoo, I can't believe they bought that. There's nothing
in my defense
about me that looks Puerto Rican, but it works.
In my defense, I will just say this, that there were many, because OCW television product was all done post-production, all the commentary. And there were many nights where, you've been in Jeff's house for 3.5 hours, busting out different things left and right, different segments. And it got a little bit loopy sometimes. So there were some times where we said things that never made the cut, but we still were like, oh, yeah, that was hilarious.
Oh, man.
So that's why.
I'm sure.
So, oh, man.
Well, Peachy, let me ask you this question.
But it was funny. It was one of those things that I watched. I'm sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead. Finish up.
Oh, I was going to say, it's just one of those things that, watching those, I got the DVDs from Jeff on those shows, and it was the TV cut of it. So I got all the commentary and everything with it, and that's the only way that I knew that John had said that. So it was great. And I always mess with him about it whenever I saw him after that.
Good times, man. Good memories.
Yeah, definitely.
What I was going to ask, Peachy, is, as wrestling evolves, certain things have happened, like the WWE, the Women's Revolution. You've got all these female promotions out there. Wrestling, especially refereeing, being a male-dominated position, a lot more females are coming out. How do you feel about, I'm not trying to be misogynistic here or anything, but how do you feel about the female referees they're coming up? They've got one of them, Aubrey Edwards with AEW, really sticks out in my mind. Mm-hmm. And what's your take on?
Yeah. It's great, man. The business is great right now. We're at that, we're hitting that peak. We're on that rise, and the business is great for everybody that's involved. If you do it right, if they can do the job, it doesn't bother me anyway, because it's another referee there and if they're trained right, there's a bunch. And like I talked about the group that I'm on, or I'm a part of them on Facebook, it's just, there's a ton of women referees in there, and they all have valid points to, things that they do, and to watch the matches, it's no different. They're still an authority figure. The guys and girls respect them. WWE wouldn't put, women referees in that position if they didn't trust them. Right. And it's the same with any promotion. So if they can do the job, then by all means, let them do it. I love it. I think it's another alternative that the women don't just have to be, seen as a valet, or they have to get in there and, shake their moneymaker or whatever you want to call it. I think it's great because they're seen in a different light that way.
Well, fair enough. I've got to agree with you. It's come a long way from the divas when they were just basically eye candy. And now they've
Yep.
got,
Yep.
some promotions do the intergender wrestling, and I'm
Mhm.
still on the fence about that, but it seems to work in certain cases. And referees follow suit. I actually reached out to Aubrey Edwards, trying to get her on the show, but of course, since we're just a small little fish in a big pond,
Yeah.
I was redirected to AEW Media Relations,
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
nightmare to even get to. I can't even find anything on AEW Media Relations. So,
If I could jump in too, and I think there's been an evolution in refereeing, period. Because I think if you look back in the history of wrestling, a lot of times, the ref was the shitty worker that couldn't cut it, or
Very true.
the ref was a friend of a friend, or a friend of the promoter that was given a spot. And over the years, throughout the 80s and the 90s, and that we've seen that position has had a lot more emphasis put on it, a lot more training behind it and whatnot, that, I think it's been an evolution from the get-go from the position.
Definitely. And another point is it was always the wrestler that was too small.
Yeah.
Not that they were a bad worker, they were just too small. And that's even happened in the last, since I've been trained. I mean, I know there was guys that went down to Florida and they're good workers, really good workers, but they were just too tiny for what WWE was looking for. They weren't over 6 foot tall, and they weren't 250, 300 pounds of just muscle. So, they ended up, they're like, hey, here, put the stripes on, you're referee now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
but in a case with these smaller people, and a prime example is Electric Jake Ely, who he's not a big guy, but he knows what he's doing, and he's learning more every time he comes out. You might not you might not make it to the big dance, so to speak, but there's going to be work for him. And all these independent promotions out here, size doesn't matter. As long as you're a good worker and you've got a good reputation, you've got a great chance of being booked.
Yeah, but
That's
I'm
very
also going to
true.
go. I'm also going to go. Go ahead, Peachy.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's guys like Marco Stun out there right now,
Right.
and I know he's smaller than what Jake is.
Yes, he is.
Jungle Boy, smaller than what Jake is.
Right.
But those guys are, I mean, they've got something special, and they can go out. I mean, they're making making the news, and they're people love them.
Yeah.
And I think Jake's one of those that if he gets the right amount of publicity about himself, then there's people that will take notice of him.
Yeah, I was also going to throw out there too that I think since we're talking about referees, we're talking about size too. I do think though, still in 2019, I think one small issue that still for me, and maybe it's just me, but still for me is a little bit of an issue. If you go to an indie show and the referee's bigger than half the roster, I mean.
Yeah,
I know, and everybody should have an opportunity to pursue their dreams, and if that's what it was, but still to me, that's a little bit off-putting. I don't know, Donnie, what you think, or Peachy or Jim, but when you see a referee that's 6'4" in the ring and no one on the roster is 6'4", it's weird. I'll just say it that way.
Right. I would say that I would agree with you because I am 6'4".
Yeah.
And you guys know me. I'm a big guy. I mean, I'm not exactly in the best shape, but I'm bigger than a lot of talent that works. I think the only one bigger than me is Onyx.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not height wise. So it's like, I even thought about that when I first started ring announcing. It's like, I'm introducing these guys and they're smaller than me. Okay.
Oh sorry. My cat wants to be part of the podcast. She just jumped up in the chair.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
That's okay. On my other podcast, one of my co-hosts has Nicodemus, the podcasting cat. So
Oh, okay. That's nice. I like that name.
So it's the clock's winding down here. Peachy, any last bits of advice for new referees out there, other than what we've covered? Maybe some pearls of wisdom that you can pass on to somebody that may want to be doing this.
Yeah, I'll let my mistakes I try to pass on, especially now. My mistakes being others' blessings. I'll say it that way. I came into, got trained a little bit later than a lot of guys. I think I was like 20, 24, 25 when I started. But there's just I was arrogant. I was cocky. I'm sure John can go. Yeah, there's probably a couple times when Peachy was a little bit rough. I was spoiled when I came in, as far as where I worked at, because there's not a lot of independent promotions that can say that they consistently draw 300 to 500 people, and we did in Lima, and you kind of come off at times like you're better than everybody. And I apologize to everybody in the past that if I ever came, I'm not. I've grown up a lot since then. But my advice to anybody would be, the golden rule in wrestling for a new talent is, shut your mouth, open your ears, and just be a sponge. Take everything in. Ask for advice. Don't be a somebody gives you advice. Don't say, yeah, but I do this, or yeah, but I thought this was. Just take it in and say thank you. There's a lot of newer referees that I've heard of now that are floating around that they're coming in and they act like they already know it all. Well, you can't be like that, because the boys aren't going to respect you. Very difficult to work with, and you'll probably unfortunately get shot on. I hate to say it like that, but this is a very different world, and if you come in like a ball of fire and you do it in the wrong way, you're not going to like you. And I think that in the past, that's what I did to a lot of people. I made a lot of people upset with me, and I tried to help people along. I tried to critique people when I probably shouldn't have been critiquing anybody. But that goes back to the arrogance and all that stuff. But again, just be humble. Be humble and just take it all in. Be a sponge.
Great advice. Any last minute comments, John, Donnie?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to switch gears for a quick second, because we are called the Wrestle Horror Podcast, and also because we can pretty much do whatever we want.
Oh, fair enough.
But something a lot of people out there don't know is not only does Peachy do refereeing, at our haunted trail last year, he was also our werewolf. And he is very fond of the haunted attraction industry, as we are, minus John Orlando.
Wait a minute. Why are you calling me out? Come on.
So, I would.
We'll get you out there, John.
Yeah. So I want
a little face he can't take care of.
Right. So I want to ask Peachy, the adrenaline you get from being a referee in front of that crowd and hearing the pops and the boos and the cheers and the jeers, and the adrenaline you get from getting those big scares and big jumps and all that, do you find that one is more of an adrenaline rush than the other, or is it pretty equal? I mean, I can answer mine myself from being on the wrestling part of it. I mean, my favorite adrenaline rush in wrestling was being the big super heel and getting pinned and hearing the crowd pop because I lost. I mean, that was like a huge adrenaline rush for me. And then also when I get that, my character going in the haunts, and I'm chasing people around and they're freaking out and screaming and
with
shaking.
With that chainsaw.
Yeah, with the chainsaw. I mean, it's almost an equal adrenaline rush for me, but I just wondered if you was the same way.
Yeah, it is. And I think like last year, with the trail, not, you guys didn't really have a scene set up for me. I kind of had to make it my own. And as far as props and things like that. So I had to, on the fly, adjust and figure out where my pops were at and all that stuff. And I did a really good job, I think, of just putting things out. But and I made the best of what I could. But I think it's for me, it's two totally different things, because like you said, you get the best feeling after getting pinned and you hear everybody, cheering because you got pinned. For me, when we told a great story, and it doesn't even have to be the blow off to an angle, just when we tell a great story in that ring, and the fans go nuts and they're hot the whole time, and then you finally you get that pop at the end of it. That's the best feeling in the world. And it doesn't matter who goes over, as long as we all 3, 5, whatever, all did our job in that ring, and the people are like, yeah, that's what I love. And on the haunt side of it, the people that are on the verge of tears, that are begging to get out, and I can't, as a werewolf, I can't say anything. That's the best thing, is because a little side note here, I remember we had the actor training or whatever, and Jim was the one that was hosting it, and he gave me the scenario of being a werewolf, and I'm like, Jesus, what do? I don't know how to do this, because anytime I had worked a haunt before, I was always a clown, so it was different. I was like, and I jumped out and did some stupid like roars. I don't remember what it was. And they're like, yeah, don't ever do that again. It was and ironically, we walked the trail, and Donnie's like, well, we need a werewolf. And I was like, you know what? I want to do the werewolf. Like, I'm mad at myself. I did a stupid thing. I'm going to make good on this. So
he ended up being a very good.
That's what drove me to be the werewolf.
Yeah, he was a very good werewolf. He got a lot of good scares. I could hear him up the trail, and I could always tell where they were, because I'd see them, in the shadows coming through the werewolf scene, and I'd hear him scream, and I'm like, "Yeah, Peachy got them there." So they're not far away,
So that'd be a Puerto Rican werewolf in Columbus.
Yeah.
I like that.
Nicely done, Jim. Nicely done.
Thank you. I'm good for one or two now and then. So just before we wrap it up, as far as the werewolf goes, Peachy, I honestly have to say that during the class, yeah, it was sketchy, but from all accounts that I've heard, and I didn't get a chance to see you, but I heard nothing but great things about you and the werewolf. And we talked about this when I gave you that awesome costume that hopefully you get to use sometime.
Hopefully.
Because this werewolf costume,
I appreciate it. It was a blast. It was a blast. I'm excited to get that one out. I still need to do some modifications on it, but I'm just waiting until I know if I'm going to do anything this year or maybe next year with it. So,
well, it also increases your height by about 2 feet.
It makes me as tall as you, because I think in that one picture, the head was as tall as what you are.
Yeah.
Donnie, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Wrestling werewolf.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it worked in Memphis in the '70s. I mean,
all right, there you go.
Hey, they do.
Just have to make sure the head stays on.
They do cosplay wrestling. Why not Halloween wrestling?
There you go. New idea.
There you go. Let's book it.
That is the end goal, isn't it, Donnie?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, we could put some bolts on Onyx's neck and instant Frankenstein monster there.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if he'll appreciate that, but okay. I mean,
no, actually, Onyx did come out. Him and his wife came out and worked the trail one night.
Nice.
And
Nice.
he dressed in a big black cloak, and he'd stand where there was light behind him and fog, and he just looked like this big, gigantic, gargantuan of a monster.
Wow.
And like people were, he would stand at the entrance up to the trail, and people were like literally afraid to go in sometimes
Shoot, I
until he would
wouldn't.
move. Yeah, until he'd move out of the way. They were like, yeah, he was only able to do it one night, but he said he had a blast doing it.
Cool.
All right, gentlemen. Well, it's about that time. So, Peachy, do you have anything you want to plug as far as, if you're shilling for work or anything like that? How people can reach out to you, contact
definitely.
you, book you.
Facebook is Peachy Rodriguez. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, all that. And I'm available. Just get a hold of me. But that new Ohio stuff it keeps me pretty busy.
Not at the moment, but hopefully eventually.
Right.
We're getting there.
Yep.
All right. Well, once again, Peachy, thanks for coming on and talking a little referee 101, some ups and downs, things to expect for aspiring referees out there. And we could not have done this without, of course, John Orlando and Donnie Hoover.
Oh yeah. Thank you guys for coming on and doing it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yep. Thank you.
It has been, and hopefully we'll see you, Peachy, again on a future show, I'm sure. We'll talk about something else, referee or werewolf.
Definitely.
And
Yeah, I can do it either way.
And the cat, too. We bring the cat.
She doesn't leave the house. She's too much of a live wire, but I might let her on again.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is Wrestle Horror Podcast. I'm Meat Hook Jim. Have a great night. We'll see you on the next episode.
See you, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media outlets. Facebook.com/WrestleHorror, Instagram @WrestleHorror, Twitter @WrestleHorror, on our YouTube channel, the Wrestle Horror Channel. Also, you can find us at www.wrestlehorror.com.